I've been dreaming of a new Steam controller with a Steam Deck's layout ever since I got my hands on it back in 2022. And despite that my interest in the Steam machine is driven by the fact that I'm desperate for a small cube-sized gaming rig, this controller is the single most exciting gaming accessory that I've been waiting for years as a PC gamer. The first thing you notice right after unboxing this device is actually how surprisingly small and lightweight Steam controller feels in your hands. Not gonna lie, when I saw first official renders I thought, well, this thing is going to be huge, like humongous. But in reality it feels quite similar to the most common Xbox Series controller. They share pretty much same dimensions, except Steam controller is 10mm taller and 5 grams heavier. So, is it a good controller? Yes. Is it comfortable to hold? Yeah, absolutely. Is it the best option for a PC gamer? Yes, especially if you already have a Steam Deck. From the design standpoint, Steam controller features two symmetrically placed thumbsticks, two trackpads, D-pad and XABY buttons. At first look, it's basically a Steam Deck without the screen in the middle, with a gyro and 4 assignable grip buttons on the back. Which means this little guy, unlike any other controller on the market, has 100% parity with the Steam Deck, and thousands of community layouts made for Steam Deck will work without any additional tweaking. But on the second glance you start noticing that the buttons on the front of a new controller are a bit bigger, the plastic texture feels a bit grippier, and the controller itself is more refined. Now under the hood we also got some pretty fascinating specs. The thumbsticks are actually magnetic. They are built on TMR technology, which utilizes magnetic fields to measure resistance at a microscopic level, meaning they are more accurate and stick drift resistant, which is not something you can find on regular controllers from both Microsoft and Sony. There's also an 8.4 Wh battery, which will last you more than a week of heavy use. And it also comes with an inertial measurement unit, the 6-axis IMU that tracks physical movement in 3D space, allowing you to emulate gyro input. In the box you can find a cute little magnetic charger called Puck that doubles as a low-latency dongle. It connects to your PC via USB-C cable and supports up to 4 Steam controllers for a local co-op. Just be careful about putting smartwatches and other metal accessories close to it, to avoid potential fire hazards. Thanks to the dual trackpads, you can play video games that were never designed with a controller in mind. I've been testing them in multiple titles including new Heroes of Might and Magic, and never had an urge to get back to my keyboard. The trackpads are engineered to offer precise in-game navigation similar to a mouse, and feel just as good as the ones on a Steam Deck. In first-person shooters you can use them for a quick precise aiming. They translate movements of your digit into very controlled camera motion, allowing you to flick for 90-degree turns and then slow down naturally and do some micro adjustments with a gyro. Of course, tiny movements of your thumb will never be as precise as your hand holding a mouse, so this controller won't set the bar for competitive players, except that's not what the thing was designed for. In the grand scheme of things, Valve was trying to create an input device that would allow PC gamers to enjoy all titles from our libraries on the couch, and trackpads are doing precisely that. One controller to rule them all, one input scheme to enjoy both modern AAA titles and gold nuggets from the past. To achieve this kind of sorcery, many years ago Valve introduced Steam Input. Steam Input Configurator is an application built into Steam client that translates your input into a low-level hardware signal, which is being interpreted by the game as a genuine physical input from another input device. So basically it allows you to remap any physical input to any other type of physical input. Like here when I press one of the assigned buttons on the back to the game, it is indistinguishable from me pressing Control on my keyboard. And if the game doesn't support controller input at all, well, roads, where we're going, we don't need roads. That's what the original Steam controller was also trying to do, but without a second thumbstick it required lots of tweaking in modern games, making this thing too unapproachable for a casual gamer. The OG Steam controller didn't have a second thumbstick, meaning that any video game mechanics that were designed with a regular controller, like doing skateboarding tricks, piloting an aircraft and beating some QuickTime events, simply felt clumsy. This little guy fixes all of that, and that's why this is not Steam Controller 2.0, this is just Steam Controller, a proper reboot we all wanted to see. This time around, great power comes without great responsibility. If you don't feel like tweaking anything, you can stick to the default layout without wasting a single second. The moment you launch a title in big picture mode, SteamUI immediately displays selected control scheme for your game. And even if you don't spend that much time playing first-person shooters, trackpads will be welcomed in time dealing with launchers and other setup tools fairly common on PC. The amount of customization you can apply to your layouts is insane. You can remap and tweak absolutely everything, including trigger thresholds, gyro sensitivity, and fine-tune the amount of haptic feedback, which by the way feels truly awesome. There are 4 L-ray haptic motors, 2 hidden beneath trackpads for subtle tactile feedback, and 2 higher output motors are placed inside of grips for in-game haptics and rumble. And because of how good and accurate these trackpads are, you can also use Steam Controller as a glorified Bluetooth mouse and keyboard, while watching movies in a living room with a PC plugged into your TV. Now, all these fancy configurations can be applied only through Steam Input Interface, which means they don't really work outside of Steam. Game Pass subscribers and GOG folks just won't have the same native experience with a Steam controller. That's a shame, because everything about build quality feels premium. Steam Controller is exceptional by the controller standards. It is quite sturdy, there are no squeaking sounds, the plastic finish is grippy, and the buttons don't rattle at all. Just take a look at this. The 4 assignable grip buttons on the back are also in a sweet spot. They are springy enough that you won't press them accidentally, but also they are much easier to click than those on the Steam Deck. I always assign quick save and quick load on them, as well as many other keystrokes that I've used on the keyboard. And shoulder buttons are so milky smooth, it's like I'm pressing on a plastic pillow rather than clicking a mouse. The only thing that deserves criticism is the D-pad. I must admit it is a bit wobbly. Now, the magnitude of wobbliness is pretty much the same as on Steam Deck, which means it's okay for most people. But if you enjoy fighting games, you might like Xbox Series controller way better. Also, Xbox Series controller features textured plastic on the triggers. These one do not, but thanks to the whole curvature of the thing, my index finger never had a chance to slip from the trigger in racing sims. So the overall feeling is great. As a PC gamer and a tinkerer, I just love holding this thing and looking at it. Even the dark greyish coating looks so sweet from different angles, it made me stare at the controller way longer than I thought I should. Like, don't get me wrong, it's just a controller. It is simply a tool that is designed to serve as an interface between you and your video games. It couldn't be more important than video games themselves, right? Right, but when I hold this thing in my hands, I feel like a little kid again, who can't stop enjoying his new toy. That's something you don't experience every day, and that's why I'm so positive about this thing. For its price, Steam Controller 2.0 holds an immense value, but only if you're willing to wait until 2027. Go hunting this thing on eBay right now, and you might end up paying 2 or 3 times the price. This is how scarce this thing is. Since Steam Controller was designed specifically as an input device for Steam Machine, it feels natural in Steam Big Picture mode. There are 2 buttons on the front to open different quick access menus of Steam Overlay, and trackpads allow you to search games in your library and chat with your friends via virtual keyboard. Valve has also added capacitive touch sensors to the grips of the controller. I think they're calling it Grip Sense. You are supposed to hold and release them to enable and disable gyro aiming, but you also can remap this gesture for anything else, including flashlight, map, or an inventory, which is sick. But since there is no grip sense on a Steam Deck, they are not baked into my muscle memory. I just need more time to get used to them. What I also appreciate about Steam Controller is that it's probably the most convenient controller for a Linux gamer. Anyone who has tried pairing an Xbox controller with a Linux machine knows how sometimes painful it might be to make them work together. I wasn't able to connect mine to a Steam Deck even via Bluetooth, because apparently you need to have a Windows 11 machine to enjoy a Microsoft product. Steam Controller, on the other hand, provides literally a plug-and-play experience. You connect it to your Linux PC, download the firmware update if needed, and that's it, you're good to go. Steam Controller should also work flawlessly with any device running Windows. After using this thing for a week, I'm convinced that this is one of the best controllers for a PC gamer, and definitely the best one for those of us who are gaming on Linux. However, on macOS, some games like Cyberpunk 2077 and Shadow of the Tomb Raider are not compatible with it, because they rely on Apple's own game controller framework. So if you're gaming on a Mac, something like PlayStation DualSense might hold a better value for you. I've also asked you guys in my Telegram channel if you have any questions about the Steam controller, and now I'm ready to answer all of them. For a TV setup, is it possible to use it as a mouse in case you need to use desktop mode on a SteamOS machine? Yep, you can use it to emulate mouse input in desktop mode as well as in Steam Big Picture. In certain scenarios, mouse cursor will pop up automatically, like Valve worked through a lot of use cases, but in case of emergency you can also hold quick access button to summon the mouse cursor basically everywhere you want. You can also set up a dedicated desktop layout and even bind specific keyboard shortcuts to the controller, like for example to adjust volume or to switch between subtitles track in VLC. How fast does it collect dust and dead skin cells? Well, I only tested this thing for a week, so I can't confidently answer a question, but Steam Controller Thumbstick shares the same texture as a Steam Deck, so expect pretty much the same amount of dust buildup over time. How good are the haptics? I heard it can even play music. It would be cool to route game audio to the controller haptics. Haptics indeed feel satisfyingly great, much better than the original Steam controller. Apparently the new one can also scream and mimic doorbell phone. How ergonomic is it? Does it feel comfortable to hold, or does the big rectangle where the touchpads are get in the way and feel awkward? Well, Valve engineers cooked so hard this thing actually surprised me by how small and lightweight it turned out to be. Over the last week I never felt a need to stretch my fingers to reach to trackpads or some other buttons. It is as comfortable to hold as a regular Xbox controller. How it feels to use Firefox with a Steam controller. Anything browser related is using the same layout as the desktop mode, so it works well, except typing on the virtual keyboard is not something I'm really used to, so most of the time I'm reaching to my phone or mechanical keyboard if I need to Google something in the midst of gameplay. How first-person games feel with aiming through both sticks and touchpads? Well, it really depends on the game, because modern-day AAA shooters are already controller-oriented. They have pretty good aim assist, levels are designed that most enemies are placed on a single horizontal line, so while playing Uncharted 4 or 007 First Light, I had zero problems aiming with thumbsticks. Well, they're not really first-person, but you get the idea. However, trackpads come in handy when you need to make rapid turns, when you need to aim both horizontally and vertically, so they have a ton of advantages in older PC games that were meant to be played with a mouse. Is it easy to learn playing this kind of games with touchpads? Yes and no. The trackpads themselves are pretty easy to get used to, however, launching a game that never had a gamepad support with a Steam controller kinda implies two things. First, you would have to carefully remap all your hotkeys to the controller, which isn't that difficult thanks to the community layouts. And second, in such games you would never see a proper controller glyphs on screen. You would have to remember key combinations for each individual actions, like you have to press Y on the controller in order for the game to register your click as an E or F or space or whatever. But the moment you get used to this, boom, it's super easy. This is definitely not suited for everyone, but this is the best way to enable PC gamers to play on the couch. So, is it worth paying $100 for a Steam controller in this economy? If the Steam Deck has been your primary gaming device for the last couple of years, you're gonna like it. If you have a PC hooked to a TV, you're gonna like it. If you enjoy building your own layouts, experimenting with gyro and other input methods, you're gonna like it. To me, the freedom of customizations that comes with a Steam controller is priceless, and I am so happy that Valve finally made a new one. Like this one is going to be my daily driver for years to come. This was Reluctant Anarchist, and I have nothing left to say.